We all know how the First World War ended. It ended with the defeat of the Central Powers, the collapse of many empires, including the German Empire or Austria-Hungary. But what if no one had won the First World War? This is exactly the topic we are dealing with today. Let's start with the beginning of the war. In 1914, the Austrian Crown Prince Franz Ferdinand traveled with his wife to the Bosnian capital Sarajevo. Here, assassination was carried out on the both of them, and Austria blamed Serbia for it. Serbia was then given an ultimatum, in which they fulfilled almost everything, except the points in which they would have lost their sovereignty. Austria did not accept this, and declared war on Serbia. This set off a chain reaction, as Russia was now mobilizing its troops to protect their brother state Serbia. Germany also got ready and declared war on Russia and France. In order to bypass the heavily fortified French border, Germany was using an old plan called the Stiefplan, which states that an attack should take place through the Benelux countries in order to bypass French defenses. However, the plan wasn't implemented in full scale because the Netherlands was an important trading partner. The operation took place through Luxembourg and especially Belgium. This was very successful, and Luxembourg and most of Belgium were occupied. But since Belgium was a neutral country that had guaranteed their independence by Great Britain, they joined the war on the side of the Entente. But even without the invasion of Belgium, Great Britain would have joined the war on the side of the Entente just a little later. Now a look to the Eastern Front. The Central Powers expected that it would take a while before Russia had fully mobilized its huge army, but Russia reacted surprisingly quickly, while they occupied large parts of Galicia. They also tried to occupy East Prussia, but this failed because German troops had crushed Russia at the Battle of Tannberg. In the west, German troops were on the outskirts of Paris. It all looked like it would be really a short war, like everyone had hoped. However, the occupation of the city failed and the Germans were pushed back. The trench warfare began. The front would not change until the end of the war. Most of Galicia was occupied, but the advance was stopped. Furthermore, Germany managed to occupy parts of Poland, and most of East Prussia was liberated again. The Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers. This was not unexpected. This country had developed a good relation with Germany in recent years. Also there, Russia showed the upper hand and gained territories in the Caucasus. German troops pushed the Russians further back, and so the Kingdom of Poland was created. At first the country was still under military administration, but should soon become a partially sovereign state. In the Balkans, the two countries Serbia and Montenegro held out surprisingly well, because Austria-Hungary was unable to occupy them. But with the accession of Bulgaria to the Central Powers, this quickly changed and a full-scale invasion was launched and the two countries soon fell. Romania also joined the Central Powers, as they were more focused on regaining Moldova than Transylvania in this timeline. But also the Entente can count a new member, namely the Kingdom of Italy. Above all, Italy wanted to acquire the Italian parts of the Habsburg Empire and incorporate them into Italy. These territories are promised to them. A look to the Ottomans, who are trying to reach the Suez Canal, but progress is rather slow. In addition, Great Britain and the Russian Empire continued to fight their way forward and occupied large parts of the Ottoman Empire. The last nation to join the Central Powers was Greece. This is not at all unrealistic, since the Greek king wanted to do this in our timeline. Cyprus was the main target of the expansion. This also secured the Balkan front, prevented the Entente from advancing into the Balkans, and significantly delayed the war. Probably the most important change is that the US didn't join the war, it remains neutral. This is mainly because Germany behaved more with the submarines, and never sent a telegram to Mexico, which a possible alliance against the USA was suggested in case they entered their neutrality. The country that was suffering the most so far was the Ottoman Empire. The country had to fight on almost all of the borders, but it was being pushed back more and more. The situation in the Russian Empire was also anything but good. The revolutions ultimately led to the withdrawal from the war. The Brest-Litovsk Treaty between Germany and the Bolsheviks underscored this. Large territories were thus placed under the influence of Central Powers. The tide suddenly turned because the hope of a total victory for the Central Powers was back. Germany now focused most of its army westwards, but offensive achieved little success, and troops were increasingly pushed back, and parts of Alsace-Lorraine were occupied for the first time. But the trench warfare means there was only minimal changes. As in the spring of 1919, the situation hasn't changed. The front in the west was completely at a standstill. It doesn't look like this will change anytime soon. In Germany, the voices calling for peace and better food supplies are getting louder and louder. However, these can still be somewhat suppressed. Things look different in the Habsburg Empire. Hungary ceded for a dual monarchy, because Hungary wanted to finally end the war, but this was out of question for Austria. This created great dissatisfaction within Hungary, but the troops from the Central Powers tried to bring Hungary back under Austrian control, but this only led to a further deterioration in the situation within the empire. The split of Hungary encouraged other ethnic groups to gain independence. Bosnia and the Bohemian declared independence. The empire started to fully collapse. But this was the last step that made the major powers realize that no one could win this war, that it would only lead to more suffering for the civilian population. So, for the first time, a ceasefire was declared on all fronts. The conference was held in Paris to determine the boundaries for after the war. Let's start with the simplest change. Germany had to cede all colonies, as they were occupied during the war anyway. Africa, the colonies were divided between Great Britain, France and Belgium. The Asian ones went to Japan, and Kaiser Wilhelm's land in Oceania went to Great Britain. In Europe, Germany's western border was moved slightly to the east. Alsace-Lorraine went to France. This was a heavy loss, but necessary to end the war. In addition, Normandy went to Belgium. In the east, Germany retained 3 vassal states, including Poland, Lithuania and the United Baltic Duchy, which consists of the 3 countries, the Duchy of Courland, Livonia and Estonia. Ukraine and Belarus became fully independent by joining an alliance with Germany to protect themselves from the USSR. Now let's go to Austria-Hungary. The decision is made to divide the country, since it effectively no longer existed. A large Hungarian confederation was founded, which enchains most of its former land, only losing parts of Banat, South Transylvania and Croatia. However, it became a federal kingdom that respected and gave autonomy to all ethnic groups within the state. Galicia was divided along ethnic lines. The Polish parts went to Poland, Ukrainian parts to Ukraine, and Bukovina went to Romania. Now, let's talk about Serbia. The dream of a state consisting of southern Slavs was particularly realized. Bosnia, Croatia and Montenegro integrated into the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, which was led by Serbia. Serbia's great expansion was justified by the fact that it suffered greatly from the war and was the first victim. During the revolution, Bohemia already became an independent state and preserved the land of their ethnic group. The desire for a greater Bohemian state was ignored in the conference. The Sudetenland is not ceded to Bohemia because it is considered more important to strengthen Austria. In the future, however, it may be difficult for Bohemia to not fall under Austria's influence. Italy did not receive all of the promised land. South Tyrol, Dalmatia and the city of Trieste were handed over to Italy. However, they didn't get Istria to allow Austria access to the sea. By this compensation, Albania also became an Italian protectorate. So Italy has control over the Adriatic Sea, which is considered very important. Furthermore, small parts of the British colonies were handed over to Italy. They were assured that they would stay neutral if Italy invaded Ethiopia. Finally, let's go to Austria. They retained almost all of its German-speaking land and sea access in Slovenia. This was decided so that Austria would be a more powerful country that could protect its independence, especially from Germany. As some voices within Austria were calling for unification with Germany, and even at the end of the war, Austria was completely dependent on Germany. This must be avoided at all costs so that Germany doesn't become too powerful. Also, Romania retains territory annexed from Moldova during the war, so it also expanded greatly during the war, but not as much as in our timeline, but it's still a lot. Now, let's move on to Bulgaria. It didn't keep all the land that was occupied and annexed during the war. Parts had to be returned back to Serbia, but in addition, small parts of Albania were annexed to Bulgaria. In Europe, Greece didn't gain their prioritized goal of Cyprus, but instead gained some territory, which are northern Epirus and the Italian islands of the Aegean Sea. Now, the last territorial change was the Middle East and the Caucasus. The Ottoman Empire was one of the main losers, as the Armenian genocide, in particular, cast a very bad light on the country. Armenia is therefore founded as a relatively large country, with territory from both the Ottoman Empire and the former Russian Empire. Hejaz, Palestine and Iraq became colonies of Great Britain, but these should be converted into dominions in the future. Shortly before the end of the war, the French landed soldiers in Lebanon and Syria in order to gain a land of influence there too. So these areas became colonies of France. In the Caucasus, the states of Georgia and Azerbaijan were also recognized as independent and placed under protection of the newly founded League of Nations. Above all, the important oil fields do not fall into the hands of the Soviet Union. Still to League of Nations. This was a federation of states similar to the United Nations. The main goal that should be pursued is the preservation of peace. But let's see how this develops. The final change that was made is that all major powers decided to help the Whites in Russian Civil War, because they said that communism would continue to spread in Europe. This was my episode of What If No One Had Won the First World War. If the video is well received, I can make a second part in which I explain the post-war world in more detail. Thanks for listening and see you soon. Bye.